Hi, welcome back to Jill and Hugh Barbecue. Today we're going to do this piece of beef. This is what they call a cowboy steak from Costco. It's a thick ribeye, maybe 2.5 to 3 inches thick. What you could call it a côte de boeuf because it's still got the bone on it. But we're going to barbecue this, but first of all we're going to marinate it in a bourbon marinade. I have all the ingredients here, so I'm going to start by putting the wet ingredients in. So we're going to start with a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, and I'm using that to try and break down the meat a little bit, to break down the intermuscular stuff in the steak. We've got a 1/4 cup of light soy sauce, a 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar. Now, I've used dark brown because it gives it more of a molasses taste. The light sugar has got 3.5% molasses. This has got 6.5% molasses, which gives it a caramelly, toffee taste. There's a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. And this little spoon is amazing for getting everything out of the bowl. We've got a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of ground black pepper, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, and then the most important ingredient. Today I'm using an Eagle Rare 10-year-old bourbon, and there's maybe a bit more than a 1/4 cup in there. There's probably 3/4 cup in there. And 2 cloves of minced garlic. Right, we'll stir all this together. Make sure the sugar and mustard dissolve. In fact, let me get a whisk. It smells amazing. Right, that's all nicely mixed up. Take care of that. Right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to prick the steak so as our marinade will soak right into it. I'll do it on the sides as well. Turn it over, do this side. Inside the steak. Right, the next thing we need is a food saver bag, and our steak is going to sit in here with the marinade. I'm going to shrink wrap it so it's sealed, and it's going to go in the fridge for 3 to 4 hours. Right, that's in the bag. Give this a final whisk. And we'll pour this in the bag with our steak. There we go. Let's just get all those little bits in as well. They all add to the flavour. There we go. Okay, that's all that's left to do now is to seal this and stick it in the fridge. Okay, so there's our steak in the bag with the marinade, and this is now going to sit in the fridge for 3 to 4 hours. And while this is in there chilling, I'm going to get the Big Joe 3 set up for 2-zone cooking. I'm just going to shake all the old ash off my lump wood before I add the new lump wood and set the Big Joe 3 up to cook. Right, I've got 4 fire lighters in the Big Joe, and I'm going to light those now with my little blowtorch. We'll let those get going, which take about 10 minutes. I've got the Kamado Big Joe 3 set up for 2-zone cooking. So here I've got my cast iron grate, which I'm going to use to sear the beef, and here I've got the regular grate, and underneath it I've got the heat deflector. So we're going to cook the beef on here first at about 150-160 degrees C until it gets to an internal temperature of 50 to 52 degrees, and then we're going to take it off, wrap it in foil, while this side comes up to a searing temperature, probably 250 degrees C, and then I'm going to sear it on both the... While we're cooking it, I'm going to be using this. This is whiskey oak. So this is from a whiskey barrel that's been finished with, broken up, and now this is going to produce the smoke to flavour our beef. Okay, so our meat has now marinated for 4 hours, and you can see the difference in the colour. It's taken on a dark, dark colour. I've got a simple rub here, which is the one we always use on steak, which is equal parts of salt and pepper, and then half the quantity of garlic granules and onion granules, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Give that a mix. Now I'm going to put this all over our steak, and it's going on the Big Joe, which is almost up to temperature. This is a big piece of meat, so it can take a fair bit of rub. I'll just pat that on. It smells amazing. There we go, that's our piece of meat rubbed. I'm going to use a meter probe. So this little thing has a flat end which tells us the ambient temperature in the pit, and this end tells us the internal temperature of the meat. So I'm going to put this, so about here is right in the middle of this piece of beef, so we'll know when to pull it off and wrap it and get the barbecue prepared to sear it. Right, so the Big Joe is up to temperature. I'm going to put this on the Big Joe. We've got our meter probe in the steak. We've got the meter block set up to notify us when this piece of meat gets to 50 degrees. Then we're going to pull it off, wrap it in foil, bring it inside and let it chill for a bit while the barbecue gets back up to 250 degrees, and then we're going to sear it. Cheers. And this is a drink recommended by my friend Troy, and this is equal quantities gin, vermouth and Campari. The quantities you pick yourself, as long as they're equal, it is very good. Cheers, Troy. That is good. Okay, so our Big Joe's up to temperature, and we're now going to put the beef on the grill. Okay, that's now on the indirect side. We've got a smoking wood in there and it's producing, as you can see, plenty of smoke. So we'll close the lid and we'll come back. When it reaches
52
50
degrees
degrees.
C. The meter probe has just told us that it's 52 degrees internal. So I'm giving it a quick check with my thermopen just to make sure that it is the same all over, which it is. And now we're going to take it off, wrap it in foil and ramp the Big Joe up to 250 degrees to reverse sear it. Okay, our Big Joe has come up to actually 350 degrees, so I've overshot by about 100, but we're still going to reverse sear it for a minute each side. So put it on, close the dome, 1 minute later, open the dome, and we're going to give it a quarter turn. Close the dome, leave it a minute, open it, burp it, and now we need to flip the steak onto the other side. Now this is a bit tricky at this temperature without a glove. I should really have a glove on. But over she goes, close the dome, and 1 minute. 1 minute later, burp it, open the dome, and turn it 45 degrees. See, this time I've got a glove, much, much better. Close the dome, 1 minute, open the dome, and our cowboy steak, our cote de boeuf, is ready to come off. Now we'll take it inside and see what we've got.
Right, our piece of beef has been reverse seared. We've cooked it to the internal temperature of 52 degrees. We've brought it off, wrapped it in foil, and now we've reverse seared it. And now I'm going to carve it. So I'm going to start, I think, by cutting the bone out. And now I'm going to slice this across the grain. And I think the grain is running this way. Wow.
Let me have a look. The grain is that way, so you want to cut it that way?
Yes, that's what I thought.
Mind your fingers. Oh. Maybe that's not the right knife.
I think I put the glove on the wrong hand.
Mind your fingers, that knife is so sharp. It's not cutting. Oh, it's quite rare.
This is rare.
Oh, okay. That's very rare.
Let's try a little bit from the very middle of this. I'm going to cut this in half. There we go.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a bit rare for me, but I'm
Cheers.
trying. Cheers. We haven't got a drink. That's a first. Flavour's fabulous.
Flavours.
That's the bourbon.
I would think it's medium, yeah.
I think it's bordering on
Could you
rare.
share this bit? This is the end. This is the end of it.
Oh, so juicy.
Yeah. Perfectly cooked medium rare steak. So just a recap of what we've done. We took our steak and we made a bourbon marinade, which we marinated it in for about 4 hours. Then we slow cooked it on the Big Joe 3 at 160 degrees centigrade. And once it reached an internal temperature of 52 degrees we let it go to, we took it off, we wrapped it in foil, and then we ramped the barbecue up to 350 degrees centigrade. I let it go. I was going to stop it at 250, but it just ran away. And then we reverse seared it for 1 minute, then we turned it for a minute, then flipped it over for a minute and a quarter turn for a minute to get the nice char lines on it. Brought it in, let it rest for a little bit, and then the rest is history. You saw us slice it, and it was, I think, I love bourbon, I love steak, so for me it was fantastic. Jill isn't fond of bourbon, or brown sugar, or soy sauce, however...
Or Dijon mustard.
Or Dijon mustard, however...
All of which were in the marinade. But the end result was amazing. It was really delicious. So I would say if you don't like bourbon, don't let that put you off making a marinade like that, because it was really, really good. And there is none left at all, which is pretty shameful because that was quite big for 2 people.
It was a kilo of beef.
Yeah, and we've eaten it all.
And we've eaten it all, with chips.
And probably would have eaten the bone.
However, there is one other thing we want to talk about, and that's this. Saint Julian...
No, Julia.
Santa Julia Reserve Malbec, which is this. And this...
really went well, didn't it?
It complemented it fantastically.
Quite an ordinary Malbec. I think it's about £10, something like that. So you can get cheaper, but really heavily into Malbec at the moment. It was sort of... Normally you can't beat a good Rioja, but that really went well with beef, didn't it?
It was superb.
Really, really nice.
Still enjoying it.
Yes. Not for long though. Cheers.
Cheers. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, like it, and hit the bell to get a notification for the next one we do, which will probably be next week. Thank you for watching.